This is the saddest story I've ever heard. Mira was the woman everyone noticed, but no one really knew. She was quiet, kept to herself, and always wore shoes that were far too big for her. And the shoes were enormous, clearly made for someone much larger. People in town whispered about her as she shuffled down the street. What they didn't know was that the shoes had once belonged to a man named David, who disappeared from town years ago. And with his shoes came secrets that Mira was still carrying with her. She wore them not out of choice, but out of fear. The shoes were her only protection against a past that wouldn't stay buried. Ethan, a lifelong resident and mechanic, started to get curious about Mira. He remembered David, the large, imposing figure who used to walk the same streets in the shoes Mira now wore. David had been a dominant presence in the town, but one day he vanished without a trace. Most people had long since stopped caring. But not Ethan. The more he saw Mira in those shoes, the more suspicious he became. Therefore, Ethan started asking around, speaking to people who remembered David and his relationship with Mira. Rumors spread quickly, and the picture that formed was troubling. David had been controlling, keeping Mira under his thumb, always watching her. Ethan couldn't shake his suspicion, and as he dug deeper, he uncovered a darker truth. David's disappearance wasn't just a mystery, it had roots in something much more sinister. Mira hadn't just been afraid of David, she had been trapped by him. The relationship between David and Mira was far from healthy. David had controlled every aspect of Mira's life, turning her into a shadow of herself. When David vanished, Mira became even more withdrawn, her only visible connection to him being the oversized shoes she now wore. Ethan began to suspect that David's disappearance was no accident. Unable to ignore his suspicions any longer, Ethan decided to confront Mira. He found her sitting alone on a bench, her feet dangling in the oversized shoes. He said gently, "Mira, I need to ask you something. It's about David." Mira's face paled, her hands trembling as she clutched her coat. "I don't want to talk about David, but why do you wear his shoes?" Ethan pressed. "What happened to him?" Mira shook her head, fear flickering in her eyes. "You wouldn't understand. It's not about the shoes, it's about what he did." Ethan was confused. "What do you mean?" he asked. Mira's voice trembled as she revealed the truth. David hadn't just disappeared. After years of control and torment, Mira reached her breaking point. One night, she fought back. In a struggle, David fell and never got up again. In a moment of desperation, Mira buried his body under their house.